Welcome to the Survivor's Chair podcast, a podcast where we break down our stories and our trauma, understanding how they have impacted our career and our life. This is a place where we break free from shame, own our truth, and step into our power, one story at a time. Hi, I'm Kim, an adoptee, a former foster youth, hairstylist, salon owner, breast cancer, and complex trauma survivor. So join us, pull up a chair, in this no sugarcoating, no holding back, honest conversation about healing and success. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 11 of the Survivor's Chair podcast. And just as I promised, we are going to talk all things nervous system this week. Last week, we talked about the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses. If you haven't listened to that one, I would go back and listen to that. And this week, we're going to talk about the nervous system and trauma. So when something scary or overwhelming happens to us, our brain and our body learn very quickly how to keep us safe. And this is where the nervous system comes into play. It's like your body's alarm system. It scans for danger even when you're not aware of it. It's always like heightened and always on the lookout, like I've talked about in other podcasts, always scanning for danger. That's what our nervous system is doing. It's your body's internal messaging system. It's scanning the environment, asking, am I safe or am I not safe? And if you've had trauma, 99.9% of the time, it's telling you you're not safe, even when you are. So your nervous system is part of this whole entire autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for feelings that you just don't consciously control, like your heart rate, your breathing, your digestion, your temperature, your immune responses. And it has two different branches. It has the sympathetic nervous system and it has the parasympathetic nervous system. And we're going to talk about the sympathetic nervous system first, because this is like your get-going kind of system, your gas pedal, or as we call it, your fight or flight system. It's your emergency alert button. It kicks in when you sense danger, like somebody's yelling, or maybe there's a fight or something like that, or even a smell that's associated or reminds you of a past trauma. We've all had those wonderful smells, like, oh, that reminds me, apple pie. It reminds me of cooking with my grandmother, or, I smell smoke. That reminds me when we had a fire in our house, and that can bring up negative responses in your body. So it can remind you of past traumas. And when it kicks in, it floods your body with energy when it's activated. Hormones are released. Adrenaline is released first, almost immediately by your adrenal glands. It increases your heart rate. It sends more oxygen to your muscles. It sharpens your vision. It gets your body to react fast and to get out of danger. This is why when it kicks in, you can feel like shaky, like maybe your hand starts shaking, you feel wired, or you feel like your heart is racing, it's coming out of your chest. That's that adrenaline rush from your nervous system. So then there's this norepinephrine that's released. It works alongside the adrenaline, and it increases the alertness and the focus, and it diverts blood away from your stomach and sends it to the muscles, which slows down your digestion. And even your hands and your feet might feel cold. But it works alongside the adrenaline to even just heighten that alertness, that focus. And then a little bit after that comes cortisol. And we've all heard of cortisol, right? And we've all heard it in not such a good way. Like anything, a little bit is okay, a lot is not okay. So cortisol, basically this stress response that we're having in our body, from the adrenaline and the norepinephrine, the cortisol keeps us in that stress response. It keeps it going. It helps your body stay alert. It gives you energy by releasing glucose into the bloodstream. Cortisol is very helpful in short bursts, but if it stays high for too long, like chronic stress, or you're stuck in that fight or flight, trauma response, it can harm your immune system. It can mess with your sleep. It can impact your memory. It can lead to that burnout feeling and even illness. So For my menopausal women out there, we've heard a lot about cortisol. And for the ones who have had trauma or stressed out, overworked, and overwhelmed, this is where cortisol is not our friend. When we've had trauma, our cortisol levels are high because that constant flight, fight feeling that we're in danger, and we're dealing with this chronic stress. And you throw in that our estrogen levels and progesterone levels are dropping. This creates more stress in the body. The estrogen and progesterone helps to regulate the stress responses. It keeps our cortisol in check, shall we say. The estrogen acts like a sort of a buffer to cortisol. So we lose that buffer by not producing estrogen anymore. Our cortisol rises, and this is why we struggle with sleep. We wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we get that weight gain because our cortisol tells the body to store fat because it's in survival mode. But constant high cortisol can lead to insulin resistance, exhaustion, burnout. Those times where you're wired, but you're tired, like you can feel it on the inside. Your body is wired and you're exhausted, but you can't go to sleep. And over time, that high cortisol suppresses the immune system. It does that to save energy for survival, which means more inflammation in the body, illnesses. High cortisol can break down bone tissue and can raise your blood pressure. It's not just the drop in hormones that can create these issues, but it's the stress load over a lifetime that creates so much chaos in our body. So in your times that, with menopause, that just exasperates everything. So it's more important than ever when you are in menopause or perimenopausal to care for your nervous system, to keep stress levels in check, to focus on self-care and your body, and sort out those childhood experiences and that trauma that you might have that's impacting your cortisol levels. And like I said before, like cortisol in short bursts in real danger is helpful. In trauma and chronic stress, then it causes issues. So your sympathetic nervous system, when working correctly, it alerts us of danger, which is what it's supposed to do. And it keeps us safe. When a car cuts us off and we have to swerve to miss it, and we get that surge, that's that sympathetic nervous system that's keeping us safe. The system that isn't working properly because of trauma or chronic stress can just lead to, long-term health issues, anxiety, sleep issues, to name a few. We covered those already. So let's talk about the parasympathetic nervous system. This is your calm down system. It helps you to relax, to sleep, to digest food, and to feel safe in your body. When this system is working, you feel grounded, peaceful, connected. This system is kind of the regulator. It brings you back to balance. I'm sure some of you have heard this rest and digest system. It allows your body to recover, repair, and restore. So it's kind of like your brake pedal. It slows your heart rate down. It deepens your breath. It stimulates digestion and nutrient absorption. It relaxes your muscles. It supports immune function and emotional regulation. Now, if you've experienced trauma, especially early in life, this system can struggle to kick in because you're stuck in that high alert. You're stuck in that sympathetic nervous system. You're stuck in that fight or flight. So you can feel like you can't relax because that parasympathetic is either underactive or overactive. And if it's overactive, it usually means you shut down or you're in that freeze mode. And then there's the vagus nerve. That's like the superhighway of your parasympathetic nervous system. It runs from your brainstem through your face, through your heart, through your lungs, and into your gut. It's like the switchboard that connects it all together. The vagus nerve helps your body to shift out of survival mode. It helps your body to calm down, to regulate your heart rate, your breath, your voice, your tone, your gut health, your inflammation levels. And when it's healthy, it's easy to slow your breathing, to stop those kind of spiraling thoughts going on in your head, to feel connection with others instead of fear. This is pretty cool. It sends messages both ways, from your brain to your body, and then from your body back to your brain. So 80% of the vagus nerve sends sensory information from your body up to your brain, meaning your body's sensations can shift your mental state. There's a few reasons why your vagus nerve might not be working properly. First one, unresolved trauma, of course, keeps the body stuck in that survival mode, fight or flight, like we talked, or freeze or fawn. All the stuff we talked about last week. Chronic stress, constant cortisol reduces the ability for the vagus nerve to function, which makes it hard to get to that rest and digest mode. And then that lack of restorative or self-care practices. If we're not doing anything to try to calm our nervous system, it doesn't work. It needs to be supported with calming activities. We'll get to that. So if you're not taking time for your body and mind to heal, without regular calming or connection, it basically loses its strength. That's what happens. And now let's talk about poor sleep, because we talk about sleep all the time and we all know how important sleep is, but do we really know how crucial sleep is? I didn't. And this is when your body heals. It's when it truly heals. And I used to sleep 4 hours a night and I wore that like a badge of honor. I thought it was something special. Look at me. I can function on no sleep. Aren't I tough as nails? Look at me go. I had no idea what I was doing to my body. But when you're sleeping, this is when that vagus nerve resets and heals. If we're not sleeping, the vagus nerve isn't working. Our cortisol levels are up. We're weakening our immune systems. We're affecting our digestion from our gut. Can you see how it's all tying together? The vagus nerve that runs from your brainstem all the way to your gut. And then you have the sympathetic nervous system, which is attached to so many organs. I'm going to attach a photo of the nervous system, or a couple of photos, so you can look at it to actually see how it works. But you have the sympathetic nervous system that is supposed to keep us safe, but it's out of alignment because of our trauma, our past experiences, and we're always in fear and looking for danger. And then we have the parasympathetic nervous system that's trying to calm us down, but it can't because the sympathetic nervous system is overridden. And the vagus system, which supports the parasympathetic system, can't do its job because we are stuck in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode based on our traumatic experiences, especially if it happened in childhood. So you can see it just all ties together, and it's amazing. The more you learn about the body and the more you learn about how many things impact it and what you put into it, what you watch, what you surround yourself with, it impacts us in so many ways. And the vagus nerve connects to our gut. And we've all heard about that gut microbiome, right? If that's off, and it really is your second brain. It's the vagus nerve is connected from your brain to your gut. So if the gut's off, and there's ways that you can test that. You're not going to get that test from your doctor. You're going to get that more from an integrated nutritionist or, a functional medicine doctor. I've worked with an integrative oncologist since I finished my treatment, and I've been working with a functional medicine nutritionist for the past 4 years. Not a dietitian, but a functional medicine nutritionist, which is different. And I think if you're going to work with somebody, if you're looking for a more natural way to go, I would look for a medical doctor that has gone into functional medicine. They're very busy. They're very hard to find, but not only do they have the medical background, they can still support you with the tests that you need. But with the functional medicine, they have an understanding that there's more than just conventional medicine. And they can give you different kinds of tests to check your gut microbiome, your gut inflammation, how all the tests done. And the funny part about it is I've never had any inflammation that was coming from my gut. I have inflammation in my body. I can't really figure out where it's coming from. So that's been an interesting journey. All right, so let's get back to the issues that can disrupt that vagus nerve and its function. One thing that is probably surprising is loneliness and isolation. We know loneliness is not good, doesn't feel good, but sometimes we can get caught in a little bit of a trap where we distance ourselves from people and we stop going out, and doing things becomes a kind of a pain in the butt. So you don't engage, you don't go to the gatherings, you don't go to all the things. But believe it or not, like social safety, feeling safe in social environments with friends is key for the vagus nerve to activate. So, go out with your friends, do something fun, bring joy into your life. It's going to make a big difference. Don't isolate yourself. That was hard during COVID. We were all a bit isolated. And I think some of us are still trying to get out of that. Something else that can interrupt it is just overdoing. You're overriding the body's signals that you're tired. It's telling you to rest and you're not doing it. So you're overriding it, and the body stays in a stress situation, in that state of stress. So stop overworking. Stop overdoing. Stop filling your calendar. Find joy. There's other things like if you have medical conditions or you've had some physical trauma that can affect your vagus nerve function also. But, the bottom line is if your body has learned early on that the world isn't a safe place, your vagus nerve is probably underused and it makes it harder to feel connected. But you know me, I always have good news, always, because like anything, we can unlearn what we have learned, even our subconscious learnings. We can unlearn. Even the things that our body has learned, we can unlearn. So what can we do to support our nervous system? What can we do to get our vagus nerve back on track? How do we feel safe in our body again? And that really is the key to healing. The safer you feel in your body, the more connected to feel with your body. That's the key to healing. It's not about repeating your story over and over and over to a therapist. I did talk therapy for 12 years, and every week I went in there, it was another stressful situation. I felt my body tense up. I felt my jaw tense, and I was in that fight or flight response, and reliving it wasn't doing me any favors. But having some kind of nervous system regulation would have been amazing. But we didn't talk about that back then. And I'm not knocking talk therapy, but I don't think we need to relive our stories over and over and over again in therapy. I think what's crucial is learning how to feel safe in our body and learning how to regulate our nervous system. So, which goes to my next point. Every time you do something slow or gentle or kind of grounding, you're teaching your nervous system to feel safe. You're teaching your body that it feels safe. So think like yoga, meditation, slow breathing. Like I said last week, if you feel like your nervous system is dysregulated or you feel like you're in that stress response, do that deep breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and do it as many times as you can. And that helps regulate the nervous system. I know it sounds so simple because it is. If you want to hum, like you walk around the house humming, I've been around people where they sigh a lot or they make noises with their mouth, would go all the time. And that was a way of regulating their nervous system, even though they didn't know it. You see somebody rocking. That's a way to regulate your nervous system. Probably things that you learned as a little kid. So stretching, walking, spending time in nature, being with people that you feel safe with. If you're in an unhealthy relationship or an abusive, a dysfunctional relationship, that is going to jack up your nervous system even more. So being around calm people is really important. Safe, calm people. Laughter, being with somebody who makes you laugh, or just watching a comedy show. Touch, physical touch. Science says we need 8 hugs a day. So hug your friends, hug your family. 8 hugs a day, and you'll feel better. So those are just very small, powerful ways to retrain your nervous system so that you can feel safe again. And we can unlearn what our bodies have learned. And like I always say, be kind to yourself, show yourself grace. This takes practice. Your body is doing what it learned to do in order to survive. And your vagus nerve and your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system is a healthy and active. Your breathing will automatically slow down. You'll stop having those spiraling thoughts in your head, and you'll feel a connection instead of fear in your body. So for me, it's been breathing. Breathing's been a big thing. Hypnosis, sleep, nature, all of those things have helped me calm my body. My body was in a chronic stress, fight or flight, freeze or fawn my whole entire life. Unresolved trauma just lived in my body. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know anything about a dysregulated nervous system. But once you start feeling your body again, or in my case, for the first time, you can never go back to that stress or that chaos that once lived inside your body, because you learn how to calm down. And feeling calm and connected and peaceful feels so much better than being in that stress, tension place in your body. All right. So my friends, that was a lot packed in a short amount of time. So I'm going to end that here. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And if you want to shoot me a DM or Instagram on Facebook or an email, and just let me know what you think about the podcast. Let me know what you think about the subjects. I'm definitely ready to get some guests on. If you're interested in sharing your story and ways that helped you get through your traumas in your life, I'd love to hear from you. And I think that's it. All right, my friends, thank you for being here. Episode 11. I will see you next week when we talk about the brain. I'll let you just soak that in for a minute. All right. Thanks again. See you next time on the Survivor's Chair podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Survivor's Chair podcast. You can head over to my website, www.kimrussellpro.com. That's KIMRUSSELLPRO.com. You can catch up on my blogs. Follow me on social, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or TikTok. All the links will be in the show notes, and I'll see you next time in the Survivor's Chair.